Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of The Walking Dead Rewatch. So in this episode, I want to give my thoughts on episodes 3 and 4 of season 2, which are Save the Last One and Cherokee Rose. Now, these episodes are really great, and I feel like that'll be a pretty common thing that I say in a lot of my rewatches, or I guess reviews of these episodes, which is you forget how good this season is. Like, this is such a great season. I think, like, I would say that season 2 defined The Walking Dead. Like, season 1 was a great season, and there was a lot of great moments that happened in that season, but you never got to know the characters like you did in season 2. They really went in depth with those characters. All those characters sat like sitting on that farm the entire season. You really got to know them, especially because of Shane. You knew where people believed on, I guess, and also with Randall. Like, you knew the beliefs of certain characters. You knew where people stood on very serious issues like that. This was just such a great season, and I remember Greg Nicotero saying before season 9 aired that the dialogue and stuff really got back to, I guess, what season 2 was like. And I would agree with that for season 9 for sure, at least when Rick was there, and kind of throughout too. Daryl talks more, even now to this day, Daryl still talks more. But I would say the dialogue is still a little weird, when Judith found out Rick could be out there, or Michonne, like the conversation they were having, they kept referring to him as the brave man and stuff, which I just find like, just say Rick, come on, just say Rick, or just say your dad, like it's little things like that that definitely, it's still kind of cheesy a bit. It's cringy, I guess. But season 2, the dialogue, the characters, they're just so great, and this is just such a great season. Now, Save the Last One starts off with obviously Shane is shaving his head, and everyone's like, "Woo, I wonder why he got back already. Like, what's going on?" And you can tell he's all stressed out and just like pissed off about something. And that's kind of starts the thing throughout the whole episode, is we're seeing these little flashbacks to, I guess, what Shane was up to, or I guess how he got back. And for me, I remember when I first watched it, I saw the scene, and then I just forgot about this scene until the end. And I was like, oh, that's right, he did cut his hair. Because it just happened so fast, and so much else happened throughout the episode that I just forgot that first scene happened. Now, I made some notes here, and I wanted to make a note of Rick eating a sandwich, because at one point he's eating a sandwich in this episode. And I don't know if Herschel and them are making their own bread, and I guess if they're slicing it like that, but yeah, if not, how old is that bread? I guess they probably do have a deep freezer or something like that, because they do have power, they probably have their own generators and stuff, so I guess that makes sense. So yeah, all of that explains itself. Sophia obviously is still missing. We see Carol, she's crying, and it's like the middle of the night. Obviously, she's still going to be crying, and this is also another thing too that I feel like characters now on the show, they don't really react the same way. Their stories aren't so revolved around, just exactly what or how they should be feeling, because their characters have to be here for this moment, or like there's a moment coming up in a certain episode and they got to be in this mindset by then. Characters will just, like, their emotions will just get looked over, they'll get rushed, and they have to get over this thing, and then they'll say, no, they're still dealing with it. But I think in some situations that could be true for sure. I think sometimes certain characters are going to feel like that. But like, I think of Rick, even in the second half of season 8, after he lost Carl, he wasn't that emotional about things. He should have been way more broken down, but there was a war. He had to keep fighting, and I guess I shouldn't say war, but there was this whole battle going on, right? And he had to keep fighting. He had to do these things, but it was just his dialogue. Like, it should have been harder for him to have to do these things. He should have been crying a lot. There should have been just, you know what I mean? Look how crazy he went when Lori died. But this is Carl we're talking about. He reacted strongly to Lori. With Carl, not that much. That's why Angela Kang's brilliance, that's where that shows, because in season 9, episode 4, I believe, Rick and Daryl are having that conversation, and then Daryl mentions something about, Negan, and he shouldn't be allowed out. And then Rick's like, yeah, but if we do this and that, then he died for nothing. He's referring to Carl. As he's saying that, he breaks down, he cries. It just comes out of nowhere. And that's Andrew Lincoln. He can do really amazing work. If he's given something that he can do or convey emotionally, he's going to do it. And I think in season 8, he tried really hard, because everything he did was still good. It was just the little tiny things, With Carol here in season 2, she's doing the same exact thing. She is still a mess. It's episode 3, but she is still a mess, and she's still a mess for quite a while throughout this season. She's still holding on to that hope. It's all she could think about. She's staying up all night. She's crying. Like, we're seeing her go through all of this, whereas I feel like on the show now, or I guess mostly in season 7 and 8, like, that stuff is implied, I guess, but we never see it. But Daryl sees this, And then he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna go look for her. So he just gets up middle of the night. Maybe he had like 3, 4, 5 hours sleep, and he's like, screw this shit. I'm just gonna go out. Speaking of Daryl actually tells the story of when he went lost or when he got lost in the woods for 9 days. No one noticed. He just walked in the house and he made a sandwich. And yeah, that basically told him right there that, no one gives a shit about me at all. And now Lori did something in this episode that really, really annoyed me. And I think this is where a lot of people got very, very annoyed. It was that she just suggested to Rick that they just let Carl die. Who cares about the supplies? Maybe he should just die. Just don't do anything, let him die, because this world's too scary. We shouldn't let him live in this world. And this pissed Rick off. Like, he got pretty fucking pissed off from this shit, because Lori was, I get it, she was emotional, but she does a lot of these things throughout the season. She's always been this way, and this was just something that I think is just, for me personally, as someone who really just tries to, you gotta live. Anything to live, right? Especially if you're suggesting someone else to die. That's just, Lori did say this. I see why people started to hate her a lot, because it's just so ridiculous. It's your own son. And Rick is so fucking annoyed by this. He is. Like, he cannot accept what she's saying or what Jenner said. He doesn't believe that it would be better if Carl died, because he just, like, what's the point in living at all then? Like, they need to live. That's just kind of the purpose. I think that's why human beings are alive in general. You just, I don't know, it's just surviving. Just you fight as hard as you can. And Rick fought so hard. And this is a scene I would recommend you guys watch. If you guys can look it up on YouTube or maybe go on Netflix and watch this. This is from episode 3, of season 2, Save the Last One. Rick and Lori are outside, I believe, having this conversation, and it gets pretty heated, and I think this really says a lot of why their relationship ended up going through this fucking downfall, right? But Carl does wake up though. And then he has a seizure, and that was really scary. That was actually pretty terrifying. I haven't watched that scene in a while, but that was actually really terrifying, seeing that, just as a father myself, seeing, just imagining what Rick and them are going through. I can't even imagine my kids going through that. Just seeing that would terrify me. Which is just, that's the sad thing about Carl's death, is that Rick went through so much to keep him alive, and then he just died. We do get Glenn and Maggie talking. This is their first scene of them alone, really. And we got hints of there possibly being something between them before, because Glenn kept looking at her all the time. But here they actually showed some interest in each other. There was a spark here, so that was kind of cool. And then we see Shane arrive with supplies, and then Otis isn't there. And then that leads to Herschel saving Carl. And then we see the scene where Shane killed Otis, and that was just... Yeah, I remember that reveal. I remember how shocked I was by that, and just the inhumane way he did it too. I didn't really care too much, but he was still nice. Like, I like Otis, but he shot Carl. So I think when it happened, I thought that Shane was coming at it from Nat, because I knew he was a little angrier, and what was to come of Shane, I had no idea he was going there. Randall definitely put Shane on that warpath for sure. There was no way Shane was going to get there. Randall, something just, I don't know, something switched in Shane's brain, and he just went fucking he lost all of who he was. He was better off dead. So, and then we get the Cherokee Rose, and then we see Dale, Andrea, Daryl, Carol. They all arrive at the farm finally, because Sophia is just nowhere to be found there. They've been there for a few days, and she's not there, which I imagine for Carol is just terrifying, to have to leave the spot where she last saw her daughter to come to this farm. To they're kind of close still, but what if Sophia went back? That just must have been, obviously, and they did showcase that. That was really hard for her to do that. We get Otis's funeral, which is obviously, it's a little awkward now that we know the truth, because Shane's giving words to Otis, or final words or whatever, and he didn't lie throughout any of that. He was very, very honest, just not completely honest about the fact that he killed him. But the search for Sophia does continue. Rick can't really go out there because he gave 3 units of blood, and so he's just, and then the whole debate about guns on the farm starts, because Herschel tells them he's not going to allow guns there, just because, they managed fine without them. We don't really need guns on this farm. And then Shane's just pissed off. Rick's kind of annoyed too, because he knows that guns will keep them, guns will protect them. But this is Herschel's farm. He's obviously gonna follow Herschel's rules. So he's not going to try to break those rules. He's just going to live by that, right? And it is really interesting to see how it happens from here, and we'll talk about that as the next episodes come out. But the whole debate on should we have guns on the farm, it's really interesting, because I do understand Herschel's point of view on it, but there's also walkers there. And certainly by the end of season 2, there's reasons to have those guns there because there's walkers, there's things that are going to come and eat you. You can't fight them by pushing them away because even if they scratch you, like you have to stay away from them. And there's a lot of them. If there's a horde that comes through, you're done, right? It's just so funny that The Walking Dead had a little tiny debate like this so early on in the series, because now obviously if like you can't not have a gun out there, you need one, right? And they've never went back, although weirdly in season 9 and 10 there's been a lot less guns because they rely more on bow and arrows and stuff like that. I guess weaponry that's more easily craftable. Now Lori and Shane talk, and Shane asks Lori if she meant it, like did you want me to stay? And then she said yeah, which I guess kind of messes up a lot of things because like it does give Shane some hope. And I remember finding that very annoying, is that Lori kind of strings him along a little bit. You know, she says she hates him, stay away, but then in other moments she gives him hope like this, and that's what I find a little annoying. You know, and maybe it's just through the dialogue, it could have been a little bit cleaner in terms of, you know, if Lori never intended to say those things, maybe she should have meant like, we can talk, I like you, like having you around, you're Rick's friend stuff, but we can't go there, never. Like if you're gonna go there. But in this scene, she doesn't really say anything like that. She just kind of says, yeah, I meant it, this and that, kind of smiles at him. And then Maggie and Glenn go to town and they get it on. And that was the first time that ever happened. And then it just kind of became a pretty regular thing. Rick and Daryl also in this episode, you can tell, aren't really friends because they just get into arguments, and the way that they talk to each other, it's just kind of hilarious. Like they're definitely not friends. They just work together. Daryl does not give a shit about Rick. Rick doesn't really give a shit about Daryl. I mean, he might help him out. Daryl just mostly sides with Carol. And I really do like this Daryl. He's just more angry and pissed off. Daryl now's not really like that, which I guess could be understandable a little bit. I still think he could be a little bit more of his older self, because I don't think people in general change that much, especially when you're much older. You don't change as drastically as he has, but it's still somewhat believable, I guess you could say. Now, Dale finds a well walker, and so that's what this episode has. Cherokee Rose is such a great episode. There's a lot of iconic moments that happen in this episode. No wonder people bring that up all the time. But T-Dog ends up killing the well walker, and then Maggie's all shaken from it. And this is actually pretty notable. I'm not going to talk about it now because I want to talk about it just as things are going on, but this is what happens in this scene, and I guess what happens later on with the barn and the walkers in the barn and Maggie, Herschel, and the Green family's beliefs on walkers. This scene explains that, because to her, it was like they killed a human being just right in front of them, right? At first, you probably just thought, oh, it's because the walker was so bloated and disgusting, so that's why she reacted that way. And then we get the Daryl Cherokee Rose scene, and this is why they're getting a spinoff. Just go watch this scene. And you kind of need to build it beforehand. Like, I would say just watch episodes. I mean, just go rewatch season 2. But if you already have, you probably know what I'm talking about. Like, this scene is why they are getting a spinoff. They are one of the best characters. Getting a show just focused on those two characters, ignoring everyone else, I think is the best decision that AMC has ever made. Well, maybe not has ever made. I think making The Walking Dead was probably their best decision ever, but it is such a good idea because the cast on The Walking Dead is so bloated right now. I like all the characters. I love most of them. Because there's so many characters, you have to give everyone so much screen time, or a certain amount of screen time. Like Rosita, she's been missing for so long, but not even really that long. Her last appearance was like in 10 or 11, episode 10 or 11, around there. She's been throughout, I guess. I think she was in episode 14 or 15, one of the two. But she hasn't really been present in it a lot. But I'm seeing it in the comments constantly. Where is Rosita? Where is Rosita? Well, they've given other cast members that screen time that she had earlier in season 10. There's just so much cast members now. It is hard to give everyone a scene, to spend a lot of time with them. Like, you will give them a scene, but it's going to be one scene and then they're just gone. That's why I think the Daryl and Carol spinoff, if they're just out on their own, you're following those two characters all episode and for the entire season and meeting new people and all this kind of thing, that's going to be a lot of fun. Like, imagine actually having a Daryl and Carol, like the first episode is just going to be Daryl and Carol, probably on Daryl's motorcycle. They're driving around. They're going to get some supplies, this and that. They're setting out on a new journey. They're going to talk about a lot of shit. A lot of stuff's going to come up. That's going to be so great. It's going to be so simple. Just down to earth, back to its roots, Walking Dead. Rick also gave Carl his hat in this episode, which I thought was pretty awesome, and that was just the first time it happened. Again, a lot of shit happens in Cherokee Rose. It is a really great episode, or I guess it's an iconic episode because so many moments happen. Because also at the end, we find out that Lori is pregnant, and what is this going to do now? because this is going to be pretty terrifying, because how do you raise a baby in the apocalypse? And this is kind of the introduction, I guess, of Judith. Obviously, Rick does name her later in season 3, but this is the first of her storyline of when Lori finds out she's pregnant with her. And this goes back all the way to episode 4 of season 2. So this is like the 10th episode overall of The Walking Dead, and Judith is already kind of a thing. She's been around forever. Like, she's been around since the beginning. Now, I want to get into some questions here before I give my final thoughts on these episodes. Q&A. Now, this is a different question, but what would you do in Rick's situation, having Carl to look after, Lori being pregnant with a child that isn't yours, trying to lead a search and keeping your group in line? For me personally, I guess if I was in Rick's position, I would probably do exactly what he did. The Lori being pregnant with a child that's not mine would definitely be really hard, but I'm thinking of the child, and I'm like, I'm obviously going to protect that child and do whatever I can to help it, right? So I'm going to ignore all of the feelings I have about the whole Lori and Shane thing, and just be like, you know what, I gotta be a dad, I just gotta be here for this moment. Now, trying to lead a surge, keeping your group in line, that kind of stuff too, added on all that, that's definitely gonna be very tough. And I at least hope I could go through that and do as good as Rick did, right? But Rick's just that great of a person. He dealt with all that shit, and he did a great job. A lot of people will disagree with Rick's leadership. I do too sometimes, but and in this moment here in season 2, he really learns a lot about what it takes to be a leader. Q&A, what would you change about the Lori and Shane dynamic? I wouldn't really change anything. Again, like I think Lori is kind of a toxic person a little bit. Shane is, I don't even know. Like, I don't know what you can say about Shane. He's kind of like a playboy a little bit. He's very, or at least it seems like in high school, or he's still kind of like that, because the way he tells the stories, he just loves the fact that he was like that, and he's still kind of like that. Rick is the more, there's only one woman for me, and actually I think he's only ever been with Lori, right? So you have 3 people all coming from different parts, and there's like this love triangle. I love it. I love how all of it worked. Q&A, do you think Daryl actually saw Chupacabra in the woods like he says? Maybe. What's hilarious about that is I thought I saw the Chupacabra when I was younger. And I'm still kind of like I know realistically it wasn't it, but I remember being so terrified when I was a kid, because everyone would say, oh, there's a Chupacabra in the woods. And I would try to go to the local store, the local convenience store or whatever. And I had to always walk through the field and stuff, because I lived in the country. And I was too scared. I didn't want to walk in the field. I still did it. I think I rode my bike through the field, actually, because my dad used to tell me to go get some milk and stuff, and I would go ride my bike over there. And I'd be terrified going through the ditches, and there's all this tall grass in the field and stuff, and I would just be so terrified, especially at nighttime. I would not go out there. It kind of messed me up for a little bit. I don't know what summer that was. That was a long, long time ago. If Shane doesn't kill Otis at the school, would he have stayed sane long enough to make it to the prison/governor arc, if there even is one, since the gunshot is what attracted the horde? If so, how would that affect Rick's evolution? I know it's not entirely those episodes, but I feel like Shane killing Otis is what set off the chain of events to lead to Rick killing him. Yeah, that definitely did contribute to that, because the fact that he killed someone like that changed him. Like, he shaved his head, he started lying, he started becoming, I guess, what eventually killed him. I still think it was the Randall thing too, because there was a debate on should we kill him and should we hang him. And so, you could argue with Otis, because he killed him, that maybe he regretted that and would change because he didn't like killing someone. But then Randall came up and he just wanted to kill him. He didn't give a shit at all. And I think combined, like, I don't even think it was one issue. Like, the Randall thing for sure, the Otis thing for sure, but it was like the gun issue too on that farm. And Shane not wanting to listen to Herschel. It was all of that. The problem with all of it was Shane. It really was just Shane. He just had an issue with everything. He couldn't live with these people. He just couldn't. And Lori being pregnant and wanting to be with Rick again, Rick just being in the picture in general again, it just pisses him off, and all of it just made him go crazy. This shit is character development. This is how you develop a villain. Shane is probably one of my favorite villains of all time. The way he descended into madness from being a good person all the way to what he became, that was such a great season. It was just so shocking. Like, Rick had to like kill his brother, right? That it's an emotional scene, episode 12. It really is. Q&A, should Otis have lasted longer? No, that was kind of his arc. Like, he was only introduced kind of for them to get to the farm and just, deal with that. he was kind of there for Shane's purpose, I would say. But thank you guys so much for all the questions. I really did enjoy episodes 3 and 4. They were just really great episodes of The Walking Dead, and I mean, I've said a lot throughout this review on my Argus, just what I really think about these 2 episodes. But yeah, I'm excited for episode 5. I believe those episodes are episode 5 and 6 are called, one's called Secrets, and actually wait, one's called Chupacabra, and then the other one's called Secrets, right? And that's episodes 5 and 6. That episode of Rewatch will be coming out tomorrow, so stay tuned for that, because I am going to be releasing these things. I think I'm going to get up until episode 12, I believe. All of that is going to come out by the time The Walking Dead season 10 finale comes out, for sure, because that's if I would have started it, or when I did start this thing like a month or 2 ago, all the episodes lined up from season 1 all the way up into the finale. It might have been early August I started this, mid-August or something like that, but all of it lined up to where I would finish episode 12 right before the season 10 finale airs. So that's my plan. I'm going to get all that done, so expect, I don't know how many more episodes, but they're going to be coming out a lot. So yeah, post your thoughts down below on episodes 3 and 4. I hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next episode of Rewatch.